This is Disclosure Now, the show where we expose the truths that are nefariously hidden from humanity. Today we are examining world events, including the illegal deportation of Mahmoud Khalil and the threat it holds towards freedom of speech. We examine the cognitive dissonance of police worship and the hypocrisy of calling for law and order while throwing away the Constitution, and we take a look at an anonymous message to Elon Musk.
This is going to be a quick video about a very, very big inflection point that we've reached as a country. You see, this guy, Mahmoud Khalil, was basically black-bagged in the middle of the night by ICE and is currently being held without charges. There is no reason for ICE to have been involved in this at all. He is allowed to be here. He is a legal resident with both a student visa and a green card. He is not a criminal. He is an educated, law-abiding, legal resident of the United States with a family. So, why was he kidnapped? Well, basically for organizing protests at Columbia University over their direct financial support of perpetrators of an ongoing genocide. Now, this should scare the shit out of you. This is not a left versus right thing. This is not an America versus the Middle East thing. This isn't even an Israel versus Palestine thing. What this boils down to is, do you support the right to freedom of speech or do you not? Well, it's not freedom of speech to provide material support to terrorists. Guess what? Doing that is a criminal offense. We will happily charge people with that. Khalil has not been charged. If there was any evidence whatsoever they could jump on, he would have been charged. They would have done that. And ironically, you know what he was organizing the protest of? Columbia University providing material support to Israel. Now, this video is primarily targeted at the more right-leaning side of my audience. And this situation is pretty well known by now on the left, but this is the clearest fight for freedom of speech that I have seen in my life. I called my representative. I urge you to call yours. This is something that requires a unified, bipartisan, resounding fuck no of a response. This is a man who was kidnapped for political speech without being charged with a crime. For everyone who got mad about the people locked up over January 6th, you should also be mad about this. This is even more egregious. The January 6th prosecutions were, some might say political and unjust, but they were at least prosecutions. In this case, they aren't even going to the trouble of finding a crime he technically committed. The precedent of rendition, imprisonment, and deportation of legal U.S. residents over legal political speech is something that cannot be allowed to be set ever. To anyone who thinks, oh, but this is the kind of thing that happens to people like him, not people like me, first of all, go fuck yourself until you come back normal, and second of all, sure, maybe for now, but on a long enough timeline, it happens to everyone, and when that time rolls around for you, I sure hope you like supporting the regime that's currently repressing you, because right now you're pissing away your legally protected right to say anything else. Call your congressman.
At this point, I'm not sure what calling congressman does anymore, but I figured that no one could really say the intro better to me, better than him. That's Flesh Simulator. He's kind of the one who got me noticing this whole thing because I don't really watch mainstream news, and then I started paying attention to it. But basically, yeah, somebody who is an immigrant, but they're here attending school and they're here legally, got deported for basically being an activist against the war in Israel, or the ongoing genocide of, can I say it on YouTube? I don't know, the place of Gaza. They're deplacing them, and now Trump wants to make it into a resort, I guess. It's a really crazy situation, honestly. But I want to examine more of this situation here, and we're going to get into the stuff about the police, but basically what I'm getting at is the police have already had a lot of ability to get away with a lot of corrupt things in this country, and it's been a pretty dangerous ongoing thing under the Biden administration, Trump administration. It doesn't matter who's president, right? And what we have now is a climate where he recently did this very political thing where he brought this little boy on TV and he made him a honorary cop. And he basically said it's going to be a crime to, well, obviously it's already a crime, but basically death penalty, I think he said, if you ever kill a police officer. Which, theoretically, if we had law-upholding officers that were held to the highest degree of the law, above that of citizens instead of below that of citizens, which is how it operates now, that would be great, and that would be protect cops. But what we have is police who, I mean, more for body cams. There's so much more that they would get away with, and we're gonna see things that they get away with, pretty egregious things, in this video, because I'm just it sucks to have to do this, but I feel like just to drive the point home, like I want to show people what we're really up against, and you know, I do believe that the worship of police and the military, frankly, to be perfectly honest with you, not to try to offend anyone, is because of a great deal of mind control. And this channel is anti-mind control. So to me, it only makes sense to present this information as it is, factually, to just kind of try to show people like what's really going on here, and just how dangerous it can be. So we're gonna, just a second, I'm trying to find the, here we go.
For the break, I spoke about the abduction of Mahmoud Khalil. He was detained 1 week ago tonight by DHS agents in plainclothes, and there's a new development that we are among the first to report on tonight. Khalil's lawyers filed a motion for bail today, arguing that their client is not a flight risk and should be allowed to return home for the birth of their first child. The filing includes this declaration submitted by Khalil's wife, who is an American citizen and is 8 months pregnant, pleading to the court to allow for her husband to be granted that bail. She states, in part, I have frequently felt anxious about the daily experience of pregnancy, ensuring my baby is in good health, and the prospect of bringing life into this world. Mahmoud offers me every bit of reprieve I could hope for. He must. What can you tell us just about his overall state and the condition that he's being held in?
Yeah, so thanks to a court order that we were able to obtain in court on Wednesday during the first hearing in this case, the judge ordered the government to allow us to have our first attorney-client privileged conversations with Mahmoud since he was taken by U.S. government agents from his wife off the streets of New York City. And so I was able to have two privileged calls with him, one audio, one video with some of my colleagues. Look, he's in fighting spirits, all things considered. He's extremely worried primarily about his wife, who's pregnant, expecting their first child next month. He wants to get back to her as soon as possible. That's first and foremost on his mind. And
forgive me, I'm just going to kind of skip through this a little bit.
He was kind of taken by plainclothes police officers, then transferred. I think there was some back and forth between New York, New Jersey, New York, and then ultimately Louisiana. What do you make of just that whole process?
Everything about this case, including that, his abduction, has been extraordinary. These were ICE agents, Homeland Security Investigations, which is a part of ICE. They showed up at his home. Two of them were already actually inside the vestibule when he walked in. Two walked in with him and his wife. They refused to show a warrant. Even when one of his attorneys was on the phone talking to one of the agents still refused to.
So this is like not constitutional. This is throwing the Constitution out the window.
Produce a warrant. And then the fact that you would take a green card holder, a U.S. person, a lawful permanent resident who has not been convicted or charged or accused of any crime, take him into detention would be highly unusual. But that you would take him into detention and move him to Louisiana, there are some shenanigans going on here.
And before he was abducted, I understand he was also concerned for his safety. There's been some reporting by colleagues of ours at Zeteo and elsewhere that he was worried for an escalation, if you will. Is that correct? Is that safe to say?
That's absolutely correct, Ayman. I mean, Friday night, so the night before he was taken by government agents, he sent an email to the president of the current president of Columbia University, complaining that he was feeling unsafe, that he was worried for his own safety and the safety of his wife.
What was that based on?
He was worried that ICE was going to come and get him because of all the rhetoric out of the government. And he was asking for the university's protection. And for a university that spent the better part of the last year and a half talking about student safety, Columbia has been remarkably silent and absent as ICE has run rampant on campus.
About Columbia's role in this, do they have an obligation to cooperate with the...
Obviously, we got to get into... I've seen enough of this. I hadn't watched that video yet, and I feel like there's not really that much going on there. Basically, this guy he hasn't been prosecuted with anything. He's a political activist, and he's being deported. And we're seeing more and more of this. What I'm seeing is they have been targeting violent criminals and things like that, and they have deported a lot of them, which a lot of people are applauding. But in order to keep the statistics up as to the amount of people that they're deporting, I'm seeing that people who are just kind of here trying to get their visas and things like that, who are here under more legal pretenses and stuff like that. Like, for instance, there's this guy from Wisconsin where his wife got deported when she landed back in the United States. They deported her. So basically, this whole idea that they're just going to use it to deport like really hardened criminals that were part of like organized gangs that they're now designating terrorist organizations and stuff like that, it's being used as a pretense to do things that are illegal and against the Constitution. And this is right out of the fascist playbook. This is, history rhyming, repeating. But and everybody, when it comes to this issue, everybody always says, "Oh, it's anti-Semitism," and they talk about, I mean, I guess not everybody, but there are a lot of people that do that. They bring up the anti-Semitism thing, and I want to point out that a Jewish group went to Trump Tower and got arrested. I've got a little thing, here, we'll check this out.
Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia University graduate and protest leader being held in ICE detention, felt like he was being kidnapped when he was arrested last week and flown to Louisiana, shackled and in handcuffs by agents who never identified themselves. That's according to an updated lawsuit filed by Khalil's legal team late Thursday. They say his treatment by federal authorities reminded Khalil, who's Palestinian and grew up in Syria, of the time he left Syria in 2013 when his friends were being forcibly disappeared by the Assad regime. Less than a week after immigration authorities detained Khalil, Department of Homeland Security, or DHS agents, were back on Columbia University's campus late Thursday to serve 2 search warrants. Columbia's interim president said no one was arrested or detained and that the university was obligated to comply with the warrants. Earlier on Thursday, the Trump administration sent a letter to Columbia with a list of required policy changes it must meet by March 20th in order to begin negotiations to reinstate the $400 million in federal funding the federal government canceled last week over alleged inaction in addressing what they called anti-Semitism. The letter outlines 9 preconditions the university must comply with. These include disciplining students involved in Gaza solidarity protests last spring with expulsion or more severe suspension, turning campus safety officers into police, adopting a definition of anti-Semitism that could limit criticism of Israel, and taking over the Department of Middle East, South Asian, and African Studies. In a post on social media, the retired Columbia law professor Catherine Franke described the letter as a ransom note. Before news of the letter was revealed, Columbia's administration announced a range of punishments affecting at least 22 students involved in the occupation of a campus building last spring. The students were expelled, suspended for several years, or had their degrees temporarily revoked. Meanwhile, opposition to the Trump administration's attempt to deport Mahmoud Khalil is only growing. Here in New York, Jewish Voice for Peace organized a nonviolent civil disobedience Thursday in the lobby of the Trump Tower, right by the golden escalator where Donald Trump famously descended as he first announced his decision to run for president back in 2015. Some 300 protesters flooded the Trump Tower lobby, demanding the immediate release of Mahmoud Khalil. Nearly 100 protesters were arrested and faced charges of trespassing, obstruction, and resisting arrest. Democracy Now! Was at the protest. We're here at Trump Tower, where hundreds of protesters have gathered, unfurling banners that say, "Jews say do not comply. You can't deport a movement," calling for Mahmoud Khalil to be freed. Banners that say, "Never again for anyone. No Muslim ban ever." People are protesting, saying, "We've got your back. Students, we've got your back. Mahmoud, we've got your back. Gaza, we've got your back. Trans people, and more." The police are beginning to move in. to be arrested have gone up the escalator. We'll see what happens. We're in the middle of Trump Tower here in Midtown Manhattan.
My name's Elena Stein. I'm with Jewish Voice for Peace. We're here today.
One thing I just want to say really quick that's kind of weird is seeing like anti-Nazi stuff, and then like also anti-Zionist stuff, like this idea that the two things don't fit together is kind of a misnomer, because what the Israel and Netanyahu is doing basically is essentially trying to create an ethno-state. I mean, they're getting rid of one ethnic group and they're replacing it with another one. I mean, that's what it is. And if you've been paying attention, people have been basically just watching a genocide happen on like TikTok. Like, it's really bad. Like what Israel is doing to like the Palestinian people, like I don't want to like show it on my channel. Like, it would get my channel flagged or like banned. Like, it's bad. I mean, they're bombing hospitals. People are going to pick up food. They're bombing them while they're trying to get food. There's just really, really terrible things happening. And as a secret space program insider, I know that Netanyahu has a space force that colonizes planets in a similar way, similar tactics, just treats whoever is the opposition like animals. So I really don't have very much patience for people who try to say, oh, well, there's two sides, da, 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 da. I understand there is, because there were attacks on the other side. But from what I understand, I've heard people say, like, and I'm not claiming it one way or the other, I don't know. This is for entertainment purposes only, I guess, or food for thought more. But people have said that a lot of those attacks were really like inside job psyops, which wouldn't surprise me with what I've seen from Netanyahu. As somebody who, I'm kind of uncomfortable talking about it right now, the memories, but I've worked for him. And I know him. And I know what he's capable of, and I know how dangerous he is. And I know what he's trying to do. So this might seem like it's off topic from disclosure, but it's really not. Because there's a lot of mind control going on with this situation and with the Trump administration. And I know I'm not really a voice in the choir much. I'm kind of standing out here on my own, singing a cappella more or less with my information that I'm presenting to you. But I know that it's true and it's right. So I'm going to stick to my guns here. And what I'm trying to expose is that they are weaponizing law enforcement to become stormtroopers. Freedom of speech is under attack. And the borders are being strengthened, which is arguably good. A lot of people wanted that. But what people need to understand is it sets a pretense for, doing the same thing to the borders of states, maybe even to the borders of cities. Militarized police, it sets a pretense, and it's the norm on breakaway planets. And I know very much that they would like that here, to have military police. Instead of police and military being separate, it's all one and the same. That's really what they want. And that's what they're trying to bring forward. And we have to fight back against it. It's very important. And we have to stand up against what's wrong and use our freedom of speech like these people are doing. And we have to fight back and make sure it continues to be protected.
Okay, with 300 people and friends, all of whom are taking the day off work to occupy, to take over Trump Tower, because we know that Mahmoud's case is a pressure test. The Trump administration wants to know if they can crush dissent altogether. So it's Mahmoud's case. He's been abducted, but they're coming for so many more people. They're starting with non-citizen students. They'll move to the whole movement for Palestinian liberation, and they'll do that as a gateway to get to the whole all of our movements. And so the time is now. We need everybody to stand up as loudly as possible and ensure that this case cannot go through for all of our movements.
I'm Jay Saper with Jewish Voice for Peace, and I'm here.
One thing I'll also say about the Trump administration is a lot of tough talk about all the money that we're giving to the Ukraine, where the Ukraine, people have a lot of opinions on that and understand, but the reality is that Russia struck first, and they're defending themselves. And he seems to be very loud about having to give them all the money that we've given them. And I understand there might be corruption and things going on. I'm not arguing that. I don't know all the details on that, but I'm not arguing one way or the other. But what I'm saying is, with this situation in Israel, we are also giving them lots of money and resources, military resources, to the tunes of millions upon millions of dollars. And just crickets, because he's going to build a casino there and a golden statue of himself. It's kind of ridiculous. I'm just being real. It's ridiculous.
Here to raise my voice to free Mahmoud Khalil. We see that the president is taking action in our name, and we refuse. We see this as a chilling of dissent, and we understand when you come for one, you must face us all. As Jews, we have an experience with fascism, and our tradition teaches us that we must fight against fascism. So that is why we are rising up right now at Trump Tower to challenge the president's disappearing, kidnapping, abduction of Mahmoud Khalil. I have members of my family who were killed at Auschwitz in the Holocaust, and so I am deeply compelled by my family's story to do everything I can to take action for all of our communities that are under attack right now. This has absolutely nothing to do about Jewish safety, and we will continue to raise our voices when they are talking about taking action against anti-Semitism. That is not the case. What they are doing is stifling the movement for Palestinian liberation, and as Jews, we are calling for the U.S. to stop arming Israel, because we believe our liberation is intertwined with one another, and none of us can be safe until all of us are safe.
I'm Jane Hirschman with Jewish Voice for Peace, and we're here to say to President Trump, he's got to stop authoritarianism, this fascism. I personally know about it. My parents were Holocaust survivors. My grandfather and uncle were abducted late at night, just like Mahmoud, just the same, and they were taken to jail. And my mother had to find them and get them out. Once they come for one of us, they're going to come for all of us.
These people are not wrong. They're not. They're right. I can see what's happening. I've seen fascism rise on this planet in multiple timelines, different time periods, so many times. I've also seen it on other planets, of course. And I can see what's happening, and these people are right. This is dangerous, but we are responding accordingly. So that's good. This is how you need to respond, just right away, very intensely. I think one of the problems that we have with the United States is we find it hard to organize these kind of things because we're so spread out. But I mean, Trump Tower seemed like a good place to go to put the message across, and hopefully we can continue to strike back against these violations of the Constitution that are happening right now. I mean, that's what's going on. The Constitution is being thrown out the window.
We are here to say to Trump, no. And we are Jewish. We're here strong. There are over 216 of us. And this is a message we want to send to the president.
From Palestine to Mexico, all the walls have got to go.
My name
name is Josh Dubnow. I'm here as a Jew because I refuse to allow this administration to speak in my name, to use our names as Jews, to carry out a fascist agenda. There is a long history of Jews fighting fascism, and we are here today as Jews and allies to say no to fascism. The Trump administration is a government that has far-right white supremacists, people that do the Nazi salute, and he's fine with that. He's fine with supporting the AfD in Germany and other neo-Nazi and far-right groups. He's not a friend to Jewish people.
The NYPD will
Facts.
indicate that this has been your final warning and they will begin arrests now.
What Palestine attack? What do we do? What Palestine?
Not everything is a symbol. Like sometimes a red shirt is just a red shirt. Just like Freud said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Palestine is under attack.
I'm a militant anti-Zionist Jew. I'm ashamed. You guys have to leave here.
Red is a noticeable color. You can see it from far away. White writing.
Jamal Bowman, former congressman from New York's 16th district. I love showing up here to support people who are putting their bodies on the line to save our democracy. Honestly, I didn't even know this was happening. I happened to be in a neighborhood and someone told me there's a protest happening at Trump Tower. So I walked over here to just offer my support. I'm here fighting for democracy, fighting for justice, fighting for humanity, fighting for brother Mahmoud Khalil, who was unlawfully detained in our country that's supposed to be a country that exercises First Amendment rights. Brother Khalil was a peaceful protester fighting against the genocide in Gaza, like millions across the country and millions around the world. We have to stand up and fight for him, and we have to stand up and fight for everything this democracy is supposed to stand for. We have a fascist, right-wing dictator in the White House. His henchman, Elon Musk, is a Nazi, and we need the people of our country to push back and fight back and stand up against all of the injustices and the inhumanity that's taking place in our country.
Former New York Congress member Jamal Bowman standing outside the protest, where inside Jewish Voice for Peace, hundreds of people gathered at the Trump Tower.
We get the picture on that. Like, you know, obviously, like, there's this guy who's being deported under illegal pretenses, and people are responding to it accordingly. And a lot of people, you know, I really see the whole idea like, oh, people are saying like the Trump supporters are like Nazis and it's such an exaggeration and this and that and the other thing. And I understand that to an extent because not all Trump supporters are Nazis. That's of course 100% unequivocally a fact. Not all Trump supporters are Nazis. But there's this saying that they have in Europe where if you allow a Nazi into a bar, it's a Nazi bar. And that's basically the Republican Party right now. That's Trump right now. Like, that Sig Heil was a message. And if you disagree with that, then why do these people feel so emboldened right now? And why are things like this happening? Like, just give me a second here.
Turn now to one community in Ohio, which is now the center of a growing national debate about civil rights, hate speech, and the Second Amendment. NBC News correspondent and NBC News Now daily anchor Morgan Radford visited the town of Lincoln Heights, where residents have formed an armed community defense group in the wake of a neo-Nazi rally. Morgan joins us now. You were there just on Tuesday. What did the residents tell you about what's going on?
Yeah, I was there just this week. John, it was fascinating.
As an American who's here while this is happening, when it comes to these protests, how are they organized? The media, how much media was it given? This, that, and the other thing. we just had our freedom of speech violated. Somebody just got kidnapped for what they say, for what they do, for what they protest against. The response needed to happen, regardless of who was covering it or how much media coverage it got or whatever. That needed to happen. And the thing that you saw was not from a mainstream media outlet. I don't watch mainstream news. I'm finding the mainstream news on this stuff just to have some context. For this current thing right now, like for instance, this news story, it's like, not that I watch the news or really trust the news. I understand there's a lot of times an agenda, things like that, but this is just something that happened and they're covering it. And I don't really see any like agenda by the news here other than just this is crazy and they know it's clickbait, it's good news. That's the reason why it's being presented, is because it's actually wild that this is happening in this community. This next story that you're about to see.
Because what's interesting is that this town was founded during the Great Migration back in the 1920s as a refuge for Black citizens.
Well, the thing you need to understand, Beth, I appreciate you for still being here after everything I said, and it's great to have civil discourse. I appreciate that. But Trump is pro-Israel. 100%. He's pro-Israel. He's shown that. So, you're not aligned with him on that. You and him don't see eye to eye on that, because he's very, with his video that he did with Netanyahu. First of all, I hated seeing Netanyahu's shit-eating grin. That's one thing I can tell you, but that's just my personal opinion. I guess I shouldn't say that. It's unprofessional of me. But he talked about making a resort out of basically people's graves. I mean, so many people died in Gaza. It's been an absolute massacre there. And he's literally like, well, we're going to build a resort there, but we're going to give them all somewhere else to live. It's kind of, not even kind of, it's very insulting. Watching that whole conversation was really insulting. Yeah, it's not a good thing. And honestly, there's a lot of truth about the Trump being pro-Israel that goes into the Knights of Templar territory like that it's stuff that's kind of hard to talk about on YouTube because people think it's anti-Semitic. I always like to tell people there's a difference between Zionists and Jewish people. And, as we saw with this last video that I just showed, even Jewish people recognize that. So anyway, I digress though. So basically what's going on with this video is there were Nazis that showed up to a town after Trump got elected. They put up a Nazi flag. It was a black town. Elon did a sig heil on TV, and it got these people all amped up, full of adrenaline. That's what happened, you guys. And all this community is responding accordingly.
Which is why it was especially painful when neo-Nazis suddenly appeared in this 3,000-person majority Black town. But they decided to fight back, taking up arms and patrolling their own streets. Now they're at the center of a much larger debate about protection and free speech and who gets it.
These aren't police officers or soldiers.
They're business owners, their fathers, their sons.
Not sure if that's true, but I won't be surprised.
Daughters.
These are civilians, members of the Lincoln Heights Safety and Watch program.
It's a duty. Okay, let's go.
The duty, protecting their neighborhood, the majority Black village of Lincoln Heights, Ohio. After neo-Nazis held a rally here last month, carrying rifles, waving swastikas, and hurling racial slurs, just moments before children were let out of school. At the time, law enforcement officials said the neo-Nazis did not break any laws, but an investigation by county prosecutors is ongoing. Weeks later, the KKK came with these flyers.
First African-American community above the Mason-Dixon line of staff.
Safety and Watch
Let me just explain something to you guys. This was not happening before Trump got elected. Point blank, period. It wasn't. So these people do feel emboldened. And these acts like calling the United States, or calling the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America and all that stuff. And you might not be seeing it right away, but they have more. They're not just, they're dog whistles. It's what's called a dog whistle. I would argue they're even more than that, but these people are being emboldened. This is not happening out of nowhere. They're reacting to the Trump presidency and to the salute that Elon did. They feel empowered. They feel safe. And this community is showing them that, no, just because your little billionaire mascot did a sig heil on the TV does not mean you can come into our town and feel safe. And they're making sure they know that.
Spokesperson Durrance Daniels says the police did not do enough, which was more chilling because the town was founded in the 1920s as a safe haven for black residents.
Lincoln Heights is our home. If somebody broke into your home, you call the police, and the police says, you know, if they do it again, we haven't broken any law, so we're just going to allow them to break into your home again. What would you do?
Are you worried at all that having a potentially armed response could just create more friction, create more danger?
I'll answer that by saying,
I think that's an insulting question. He's got Nazis running around in his black community. How the hell else is he supposed to respond to it? That's dangerous. They're in danger. And the police weren't doing anything about it. That's an insulting question to ask him.
Never felt safer as a black man in my community than I have right now.
The mayor of Evendale, which oversees the police force that responded that day, said in a statement to NBC News, "Our emphasis on de-escalation and public safety resulted in the incident's resolution without injuries to any of the persons involved." But residents here say they can't afford to wait. Every day, the safety in the school and patrols the streets.
Why do you
What the Ku Klux Klan is? The KKK? The guys that wear the hoods? That's what they are. The KKK.
wear masks?
Those Nazis, we have reports of them finding our backgrounds, so we're not hiding ourselves from the residents, but we're protecting our family from what we're doing out here.
While many locals do support the security group, some, like business owner Eric Ruffin, say they wish the group wasn't needed.
We don't want to become what we hate. You know, we don't want to become...
He's not even saying he doesn't like him. He's just saying, I wish we didn't need it.
A group of people that walk around feeling like we have a reason in America to have to protect ourselves.
And this community
stand up
is not backing down.
We contacted the mayor of Evendale's office, and they say that prosecutors are looking at body camera footage of the neo-Nazi rally to see if any criminal charges could be filed. But meantime, the Hamilton County Sheriff is also calling on state lawmakers to pass legislation making it a crime to wear a mask with the purpose of intimidation while open carrying, guys.
So, Morgan, let me ask you, one of the people you interviewed there, a young man, said he's never felt safer in his community than he...
As somebody who's been to other planets, says wait for people to meet the ETs, it'll end this xenophobic insanity. Nope, it doesn't. Doesn't do that. No, it's too ingrained in us. Doesn't matter what planet you are. Italians are Italian, Poles are Poles. You know, black people are black. We're different than each other. We have differences. We either accept that and we learn to live with each other peacefully, or we don't. But it's still a problem in space on other planets. In fact, on some planets, it's worse of a problem than it is here. There are like ethno-state planets, like where it's all white people, and that's all. You can't be certain race. And also, you know, there's also planets like that where it's all black people and all sorts. There's a Zulu planet where they're very kind of xenophobic and racist against white people. They have, I think, maybe a better reason for it because of some of the things that they've seen, but it's still a problem in space, which is really sad. Yeah, the war on terror was the war on Terra. Terrans. War on Terra. That's what that was, the war on Terra. Not terror. He always said it that way even. War on terror. Terra. People always joked about it. No, he was intentionally saying war on terror. Terra. Because war on Earth. War on Earth humans. That's what that meant.
He does now. So this could have an impact nationwide, things like this. I mean, there is a contagion factor in safety.
And here's the thing is, this is what our First Amendment right is for, people. It's to protect ourselves from tyranny. of all forms, whether it's people with fascist, hateful ideologies that want to intimidate communities like this, or it's our own government. We have the right to be armed. It's in the Constitution.
People always seek it. What did the mayor or anybody that you spoke to think about the contagion factor?
Duran's, I don't want to speak for him, but after my conversation with him, I feel like I could confidently say he would say the contagion factor has already happened. Because when I asked, is this a reaction to a local moment or a national movement? And he said, look at January 6th. He said, you already have people felt emboldened to come here locally because of what they saw nationally. If you can hang from the building of the hallowed halls of the Capitol and then be pardoned, not be prosecuted, why don't you think you can come to a small village of African Americans, only 3,000 people?
Morgan, does the group have any real authority? But as long as they stay within the confines of the law, they should be okay.
It's a great question. You know, I asked that basically, are you stopping cars when they come in because you think someone looks suspicious? Is that, you know, profiling in its own sort of way? And they said, no. We are patently aware of what our rights are and what our limitations are. They said, we're not officers. What we do is we are trying to cooperate with the police department. So if we see suspicious activity, because remember the KKK came back with flyers just after this rally. So they're saying this is more of a defensive posture to deter people from entering our community and showing them by virtue of our masks, by virtue of our guns, that you can't come here and we're not going to take this punch lying down.
All right, an important story, fascinating. NBC News correspondent.
All right, now I'm going to show you guys how this has been treated historically. Some of the most strict gun control laws were passed under Reagan after the Black Panthers started protecting their communities from corrupt police. The Black Panthers did things like they organized the first free food program for struggling families, and the first time that they did it, the New York, the NYPD showed up and pissed on the food. They showed up and pissed on it. So the history of like racism and like police targeting black people is big in this country, and it's not over. The idea that it's done and it's not a thing anymore is, in my opinion, really childish and naive. And we're going to give an example here of law-abiding black citizens practicing their First Amendment right in a way where they're trying to educate their community members, and they're targeted for it. And this is from a guy who I really like. He's a civil rights lawyer here on YouTube. I highly recommend you check out his channel to learn about basically like standing up to police. Like, he's gotten a lot of things done with this channel. He's gotten cops fired and things like that. So
that's when my wife screamed my name and said, "Mark, someone's outside the house."
This is the police with a warrant. Police with a warrant. Stay away from the door.
So then I immediately grabbed my firearm. I'm thinking there's someone about to break in the house.
When Mark Manley began to use his social media influence to organize the black community, teaching them the importance of firearms ownership, safety, and the Second Amendment, how did the U.S. government react? Well, I'll show you. The ATF raided his home and pointed firearms at his innocent children.
So I look outside of the window and I see tactical units surrounding my home. When I spoke to them, I was spoken back to with nothing but rifles pointed at my bedroom window. You can see the red dots all through my window. You can see them unlock my door, throw something in, and then they run to take cover. They throw a flashbang, they throw on the sirens. They threw one in my living room and threw one in my son's bedroom while he was sleeping. I see dozens of rifles pointed at me. The officers say, turn around. When I turned around, I see red dots on my oldest daughter. It was like 6 red dots on her. Told the officers, "Hey, y'all are pointing guns at my daughter." They told my son they were pretty much going to kill him. They're great children. They're not, they didn't deserve any of this.
It was like waking up to a bad dream.
They said, "Guys, we got nothing here." And everybody's face just like dropped in disbelief.
As both a content creator and a lawyer, I take online privacy very seriously, but most people are completely oblivious to the fact that their private data is being collected and traded online by shady data brokers. Data brokers create shadow profiles on you that include a frightening amount of personal information, and that information is then used without your knowledge or consent by banks, insurance companies, and even the government. Obviously, I don't want that, and neither should you. That's why I use and endorse this product called Incogni. It not only tracks down those data brokers that have your information, but they have that information completely removed. And it's very easy. You just create an account and that's it. They do all the work for you. It just works in the background. As of today, Incogni has located my private information with 495 different data brokers. And to date, they have had that.
Sorry about that, guys.
Works as an intervention specialist in a local school district, teaching de-escalation and conflict resolution, and also coaches girls flag football. He founded the Chapa Community, an initiative aimed at normalizing legal firearms in the community and educating people on firearm awareness and safety. How was that?
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% accurate.
And that wasn't the whole thing. Like, it continues. Manley gained wider attention following a controversial ATF raid on his Baltimore home on November 21st, 2024. The pre-dawn raid involved heavily armed agents deploying flashbang pointing rifles at Manley and his family, including his wife and 3 children. Despite the aggressive operation, no illegal firearms were found, and the only item seized was his cell phone. Manley asserts he's a law-abiding citizen with no felony record and believes the raid may have been an intimidation tactic due to his vocal advocacy for gun rights, especially as a black man educating his community on firearms.
Of course I'm going to be under attack, you know, and that's okay. I expected that, and like I said, we're going to keep fighting. You know, the government is definitely they're not black 2A. They're definitely not pro-black 2A.
The incident left his family traumatized, their home damaged, and sparked significant discussion about ATF actions, with Manley raising funds for legal defense and repairs.
That is 110%. That is so crazy.
He also runs Mark Chapa TV, a YouTube channel with over 309,000 subscribers, where he shares firearms content and promotes unity and education. His work emphasizes empowering inner city communities, particularly black firearm owners, through knowledge and responsibility.
We're changing the lifestyle of our young brothers and sisters. We're changing their mindset, you know, and so it's important that we continue to come together like this.
The reasons behind the ATF targeting him remain unclear, with speculation ranging from an anonymous tip to potential government pushback against his activism.
We've been losing our children out here. There's been no representation of unity. There's been no representation of change for our youngins. There ain't no more Malcolm X. There ain't no more Huey P's.
You got Mark Chapa. You got Mark Chapa.
When we talk about what's at stake, everything.
That's exactly how I feel, you know? I mean, it could be either one of those things.
Unity is key. Remember that. 1, 2, 3. Unity is key.
I think every single ATF employee that was involved in the raid on your home needs to be fired if they haven't already.
No, that's exactly how I feel. Like I said, I mean, what they did was unforgivable, man.
So it's like the week of Thanksgiving, everyone's getting ready for Thanksgiving. You had no idea that anything was wrong until this happened.
No. Me and my wife was up. We was getting ready for work in the morning. We're both school teachers, so we're up pretty early. She was in the living room drinking her coffee, and I was upstairs getting ready. And that's when my wife screamed my name and said, "Mark, someone's outside the house." So then I immediately grabbed my firearm. I'm thinking there's someone about to break in the house. So I look outside of the window and I see tactical units surrounding my home. So of course I then put my firearm down, and first thing I did was make contact with my children. Told them to get up. We got the police at the door. Everybody stay calm. So I went to the window and I said, "Hey, we're coming out."
Hello? Hello, police! The police! Come here. Police! This is the police with a warrant! This is the police with a warrant! Police with a warrant! Stay away from the door!
A few seconds later, I hear my wife scream and I hear a bomb go off.
Occupants!
And of course, at the time, I didn't know what it was, but it ended up being a flashbang because when I came downstairs with my children behind me, my wife was disoriented.
The children who were at home when this happened, what are their ages?
Zena is 17, Achilles is 15, and Zara is 14. Zena, my oldest, just finished culinary school. Achilles is a athlete, is a student athlete. He goes to a top 5 school, and my daughter, she's an artist. They're great. They're great children. They're not, they didn't deserve any of this. And they're still.
This goes on for a while, but the point is he didn't do anything wrong. He just basically was an open carrying African American, and the ATF targeted him. You can't sue the ATF. It's all unconstitutional. So I'm getting at here. These people just pick and choose when to follow constitutional law, and it's super messed up, honestly. And it's dangerous. And I've got a bunch of different examples of stuff, but speaking of just like to this police brutality, I really liked something that I found here. I want to show you guys. This woman went off.
At the top of your little speech that you do every week, Southers, you say that this board is committed to accessibility for the community, and yet here we are still having these meetings at 9:30 a.m. on a fucking Tuesday, and you guys couldn't even manage to have your stupid community meetings in the third or fourth quarter of this year. Get it together. There have been several donations in the past few weeks for various youth programs, and like many of the other speakers today, it honestly can't be said often enough that LAPD has no business running youth mentoring programs. It's objectively a moral cesspit. It's corrupt from the top down. The elected head of your fucking rank and file runs a security company which hires cops fired from the LAPD, which is very fucking scary, very hard to get fired from the LAPD. Some of them fired for violent offenses, hires them to be security guards at Walgreens, and then scams them out of their wages. The head of this accountability body is on the payroll of a genocidal foreign army. He legally used government databases to spy on his ex-wife. He started an organization which would employ a police officer who molested over 200 kids and never said anything about it, never distanced himself from it. And the stuff that I have heard in the last 2 years of attending these meetings is like, the fact that you think that you can run programs for kids is truly disgusting. And just off the top of my head, what I can remember, a new recruit arrested for child molestation, a supervisor fucking their subordinate on the job, and I think it was the wife, an officer who sexually abused a mentally ill woman and forced her to have sex with an animal. I mean,
Gabriel Spada.
you blew up a truck full of fireworks and killed people and blew up their houses. You beat the shit out of protesters. You kill people in high-speed chases. You shoot them in the worst moments of their lives when they come to you for help. And you have the nerve to run fucking youth mentoring programs? It's literally mind-blowing. I want to talk with my time remaining about something that happened on Wednesday. There was a sweep at an encampment in CD11. There is a woman there that I'm friends with who lives in an RV. She obviously is coping with a lot, and she was talked into voluntarily giving up her car to be towed by an LAPD officer. She didn't understand what was happening to her, and she wasn't allowed to get any of her shit out of her car, so she had no clothes, she had no underwear, she had no food. And you know what the dumbest thing is? When I call that fucking tow company, they'll let us come down and get her shit out of the car. But that LAPD officer couldn't give her 5 minutes to get her stuff out of the car before they took it away. And also tricked her into signing something, into voluntarily giving up her vehicle, which she did not realize she was signing. Fuck all you guys.
We need more of that energy in this country. Civility is gone. These people aren't civil. They're hiring fucking child molesters and shit. Like, that. What's civil about that? Like, you can't work with these people. Like, you can't make excuses for them anymore. Like, I had Pat Jackson on this show. She was involved in the Founders case, which was a satanic ritual abuse crime ring, basically, that was making snuff films and all sorts of stuff. And she explained it on the show. She was a police detective. Like, if you really are trying to change things, you're going to get messed with. Like, they reward narcissists. They reward abusive people. That's how the police manage. What do you mean? What do we do districts? What kind of question is that? No. It's the whole point of what I'm saying is no, we don't do that. Like, no. So there's countless examples of this stuff. There's more and more and more. It just keeps coming, really, honestly. There's just more and more examples of things. Yeah, here, I got another one for you. Just give me a second. One second. Just really getting the point across here, guys.
Remember the Seattle cop that was seen laughing after his colleague fatally struck a grad student while he was speeding in his patrol car? If not, let me refresh your memory.
I don't think she was thrown 40 feet either. I think she went up on the hood, hit the windshield, then when he hit the brakes, flew off the car. But she is dead. No, it's a regular person. Yeah, just write a check. Just $11,000. She was 26 anyway. She had limited value.
These are the people that are patrolling our streets, protecting us. This is Seattle, one of the most liberal cities in the fucking country, apparently.
Officer who made those comments was Daniel Otterer, and he was responding to the scene where Janavi Kandula was hit and pronounced deceased just moments ago, and he was seen laughing about it, saying she had limited value, and he wasn't speaking to just anyone. He was speaking to the union president, Mike Solon. And let me remind you, the officer that hit her, Kevin Day, was going 74 in a 25, almost 50 miles per hour over, but all criminal charges against him were dropped because they said they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was consciously disregarding safety. So instead, he was hit with a minor traffic infraction and cited only $5,000, and he didn't even pay that fine and instead contested it. And just last month, Kevin Day was fired after they found that he violated 4 department policies, including one that requires the safe operation of police vehicles. And instead of accepting that he took a life and should face the consequences, he is now appealing his firing in a process that could take months. Not to mention, Daniel Otterer was also fired, but is now suing the city for releasing that video of him. Neither of the officers owned up to what they did, apologized, or even faced the consequences of what they did without trying to contest it. But rest in peace to Janavi Kandula, who had unlimited value, and please help me share her story so she can finally get the justice she deserves.
I'm not on Facebook anymore, but I know a lot of y'all, still use Facebook to keep connected with people. What would you say if I told you that you could just get arrested for just making a post on Facebook? So just cops will just show up to your house and just start harassing you and basically arrest you for posting something on Facebook. What if I told you that actually happened? Here it is.
Go, Paul. I just wanted to talk to you for a minute. It sounded like you had an issue with one of our deputies. When you're making the comments that you're making on Facebook, that kind of brings issue to me.
This police officer in West Virginia just showed up at this guy's house because he got upset at something that this guy had posted on Facebook about police officers.
The direction that our department's going in is a lot different than what it was 30 years ago. Secondly, when you bring up Howard Ferris, you bring up somebody that's important to me, because he was like my uncle. When you make comments like that kind of upsets me, you know what I'm saying?
But when this guy says this was freedom of speech, that triggers this police officer. And even though he's at this guy's home without a warrant, when his feelings get hurt, he unconstitutionally grabs the guy and arrests him.
Freedom of speech. I can say whatever I want. I could 100% write up a warrant for you. I'm not doing. I'm not. You want me to do that? Okay, that's fine. For you. I came down. Well, I came down. Hold on, I'm talking to you. You're not walking away from me. No, get back over here. You want me? Turn around.
Guy's trying to go to work, like.
Unbelievably,
That's the whole
this
video,
police
you
officer
guys. He's just basically examines it and says it's fucked up. It is fucked up. There's no more really, like, I don't need to play the whole video. Like, the guy got arrested for making a post on Facebook. Like, that happened. How often do you think stuff like this happens and we don't see it on a face? Like, it doesn't get a YouTube video. Like, this shit is happening every day. Every day this is happening. Oh, wow. This one is this is the one that I should have played first, honestly. This is the one I should have played at the beginning. Because this man's story is so fucking heartbreaking. And at the end, he talks about how he still respects the police. That's the hardest part for me. But this story is absolutely heartbreaking. And this will show you everything that's wrong with the police in this country. And this is how bad it is already. It's going to get worse under the Trump administration if we don't fucking stand up right now and fight back.
Good afternoon. Some of you already know who I am. My name is Brian Campbell. I've lived in Hansville 62 years, and I was a victim of this police department. I will preface my remarks by saying, not one day, not 1 minute in my life have I ever been in any kind of trouble, maybe a speeding ticket. On May the 20th, 2023, I was caring for my wife. Some of you know me. I've known some of you since you were children. I was caring for my wife with Alzheimer's and my disabled daughter. On that day, an incident happened at my residence. Hansville was dispatched. 2 officers approached my home, and I didn't know why they were there. I inquired why they were there, did not get a response, so I proceeded to close the door to my house. Upon doing so, one of the officers took his foot, jammed it in the door, and forced his way into my home. Asked me to step outside. Upon which time, there were 2. One of them was very professional. I have told him countless times how I was so.
How is he professional if he let his partner act in this way? Good cop, bad cop. That's all it is. It's a psyop. They're fucking both criminals. Is what this poor man is so fucking mind controlled that he can't even just admit the fact that neither of these fucking monsters deserve their badge.
So pleased with the way he behaved. The other one was the officer from hell. He's not currently on this force because during all this, I prevailed in a lawsuit that took over 1 year and $17,000 of my money to defend myself. That officer hit me from behind, of which I can't hardly still walk, with his knee, took me to the ground, and beat me mercifully. My attorneys have the photographs. Coleman Hospital has the records. I was handcuffed and roughed up really bad. Placed in a police vehicle. It was May, so it wasn't very hot. It was not running. No air conditioning on, but I began to hyperventilate. I'm a 2-time survivor of cancer and a heart patient. While I was in that vehicle, when one of them finally returned to the vehicle, I was in real bad shape. An ambulance was dispatched and the paramedics. Well, the only problem I had was I couldn't breathe. Once I got air, I was fine. I was then taken by the officer who brutally beat me up to Hansville jail. On the way to the jail, and I was never allowed to explain anything to him. I was never told I was under arrest. I was never told anything till I got on my way, well, actually, till I got here. On the way, that officer said to me, "Men like you are nothing but pieces of human increment." And that's not the words he used. I was married to my wife 52 years. I never touched her, ever. The incident involved, and I was trying to tell them, with her Alzheimer's, she didn't know what she was doing and tried to exit the vehicle while moving. I pulled her back by her hair, and I was so admitted to that. And that constituted, in your officer's opinion, domestic violence. Anyways, And that was all perpetrated by a 911 call where the person hung up. When I got to the jail, my abuse continued. Maybe it's procedure, I don't know. I was handcuffed to a bench right out there for 3 hours. I say this somewhat shamefully, but I'm a cancer survivor and I'm incontinent. And while I was there, I desperately need to go to the bathroom. I requested from the officer, and you know, the city hall is right down the hall. And I was handcuffed, was denied. I urinated on myself. Then I was placed in filthy rags, and I'll tell you, I've traveled all around this world, and that's no lie. As a buyer for a major retailer, I've been in every country you can imagine. The facilities in this jail, and I hope they've changed, were filthy. There were feces on the wall, feces on the water fountain, feces all over the floor. Looked like it hadn't been cleaned in 5 years. Have any of you ever went in that jail and looked at it? I don't care if you're a criminal, you deserve better treatment than that. I was denied food and water because on the way to jail, I said, why don't you just shoot me and take me out of my misery? I was put on suicide watch. No food, no water, no nothing. A kind lady jailer come up and had seen my record. She said, Mr. Campbell, I'll get you some water and they don't have to know. She said, I looked at your record. You've never been in any kind of trouble. I said, yes, ma'am, when I was younger, I got speeding tickets, but that's the extent of it. Long story short, I finally talked to one of the 3 chiefs that's no longer here. This gentleman, chief, was a reasonable man, and I finally got to explain my story to him. And he was very empathetic, and I know it was only my word against your 2 officers. And he said to me, I will make a phone call and see what I can do, because I found out that my stay would be 2 days in jail, 48 hours. And I was charged with 2 felonies, domestic violence and resisting. I was told my bond was $2,000. So they proceeded to put me in that filthy jail. I spent the night in that jail. Next day, the chief did as he said. My magistrate came down. It's a Sunday. I had the money cash on me, $2,000. She said, pay your bond and you can go home. I went to pay my bond, and this may be the procedure. If it is, I've never been in trouble, I don't know. But I was told, we cannot take cash on the weekend. So that told me you can't even trust your own police department with cash. But if you use a credit card, we'll let you go home. Reached in, got my credit card. Oh, but by the way, do you council members know this? It's $200 more if you use your credit card. So I paid. I'm ready to go home. By the way, by this time I was not allowed a phone call. I was never told anything about my charges. I called my son. Some of you know him. He's an upstanding citizen, was once a manager of LP down here. He's now a private contractor. He said, Daddy, they're not going to let you go home. I said, what do you mean they're not going to let me go home? He said, well, they told me that you're going to be transferred to Coleman Regional. I said, why? They have you under a suicide watch. You have to be evaluated. So Sunday evening, and believe me, I'm no harm to anybody, and was certainly no threat to those 2 policemen. Either one of them could have taken me easily. I'm at Coleman Regional. I'm kept overnight. When the doctors saw my beat up body, they asked me, what could have possibly happened? And I told them, the only good thing that came out of that is the nicer of the 2 officers was the one who transported me. On the way to the hospital, I said, young man, tell me how you could possibly think that he could think that I was resisting. His exact words, and I'll never forget them, because my wife and my wife was dying then. He said his perception was that you were resisting. I said, you were there. Long story short, it came time for discovery. I didn't know anything about discovery, paid 2 attorneys. They said, here's what's going to happen. They got to present their evidence, and you can present your evidence. Well, Kathy, and a lot of you know my wife, Kathy, a better woman than ever was. She was on her deathbed. And I called up my attorney, Johnny Berry, and I said, I'm supposed to be there. He said, Brian, don't worry about it. He said, me and Brandon will be there. You don't have to be there. So I stayed with my wife with hospice. I wasn't there. In the meantime, my wife died. A month and a day later, my daughter died. On the night I was sending pictures to the funeral home, 2 more Hensel officers came to my residence to arrest me again. They came to arrest me for bond forfeiture because I didn't show up on that court hearing. My attorneys were both there. They represented me. I paid them well. I'm making these arrangements and getting ready to be taken to jail. My daughter was being buried the very next day. Fortunately, I know Kenneth now, and I wasn't in any shape to call him, but my son Kevin called and he said, look, my daddy, we just lost my sister. You know, he's a good man. Anybody knows me. He said, they just leave him alone? Never told me what the warrant was for, by the way. Kenneth told him, or I don't know if it was Kenneth or who it was, someone later told me the chief told him to just go on and let me turn myself in. Okay, I called my attorneys and told them what happened. I still don't know what the warrant's for. I didn't know it was bond forfeiture. I go on to the cemetery and I buried my daughter. On that day that I buried my daughter, I went to Huntsville, down here to this courtroom, and that judge, who was a joke, that sat right there, read me the riot act and told me, had me handcuffed immediately, and told me he's going to put me under the jail. You were remodeling, so I sat handcuffed out here in the hall for another 3 or 4 hours. During that time, I was told I was being arrested for bond forfeiture. I said, what bond? They said, well, you didn't appear for the discovery. No argument from my part would be heard, because I'm just an average citizen, like all these people here, an innocent average citizen. I was transported to county. I sat in county the night of my the night of my daughter, she was buried, sat in county, and was going to be put in jail under no bond, 0, because I forfeited my bond, allegedly. My son knows the sheriff real well and the chief deputy. He called and he said, look, I don't know what's going on. And you know, I'm not going to say my dad's innocent or guilty, but we just buried my sister. And they told me to disrobe, go take a shower, put me in the rubber shoes. Well, get ready to put me in the orange jumpsuit. And the desk deputy said, Mr. Campbell, today's your lucky day. And I'm thinking, you just don't know. It's 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I said, well, tell me. He said, you've been released, ROR. I think that's released on your own recognizance. And I was released. We come back in front of this same judge. It continues almost for an entire year at more financial expense. And I'll conclude what I have to say by your police, untrained, uninformed, and you, like the lady before me said, you're the accountable ones. I was a manager of a major retail company, top level, and the buck stopped at me. The decisions to make these people in the roles they're in fall on each of you. And I ask again, have any of you ever looked inside that jail? And if it's changed, I'm shocked. But anyways, what I have to say don't amount to much, but I got my day and I could say my piece. My son said, well, at least 100 people said, you ought to sue them. Well, in the first place, I'm not the kind of man that sues anybody. I've never done anybody wrong in my entire life. I'm a Christian and I believe in treating people Christ-like.
Amen.
Okay? And I didn't want a pound of flesh, but I never got so much as I'm sorry this happened to you. And Mr. Sawyer, I've known you a long time. Another incident happened, and I had you come to my residence. At that time, you brought the new chief with you on this other issue. I told you a little bit about this story. Your exact words to me in the conversation, what do you expect me to do? And my response was, so help me. If you got a Bible, I'll swear on it. I said, what I want you to do is clean up this town. Clean up this mess. I said, the people of this town deserve it. I'm just one individual. And nobody really cares what I have to say. Imagine if it happened to you, losing your child and your wife, and then being drugged through this crap, and then financial expense on top of that. You know what your response was to me? Do you remember, Jimmy?
I remember exactly the way.
Well, if I'm lying, I'm dying. You looked at me and said, that's why this man right here is the new chief. He is going to clean it up.
Shit. Shit.
He cleaned it up, all right.
Yeah, he did.
And I would have never said another word about this. In fact, my son said, Daddy, don't sue him. You've been through too much. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you more hurt. I can barely walk as it is from the injury to my back from that officer. And I agreed with him after praying a lot on it. But when I saw this nonsense, I said, maybe my story's not good. And maybe they'll put me off as a fool like some other people that have stories. But I swear to God, every word I told you is the truth. One thing I left out. At that time, you had 8 police officers. Because the chief told me himself, you had 8. That day, while I was sitting in that squad car in my driveway, and there's a man in this room that can testify to the fact who's my neighbor, 5 squad cars showed up, 7 of your 8 officers, and you would have thought I was a murderer or a drug dealer. Fact.
Growing up in Appleton, I would see cops do that all the time. Just like someone gets pulled over and there's like 3 or 4 cops. When this video is over, story incoming for sure. In fact, a few of personal experiences.
Fact. Then one of them told my neighbor in this room, who I don't know if he's going to speak or not, but that night when before I buried my daughter, or the funeral, when they came with that warrant, they left. My good neighbor came over to check on me, see if I was okay. When he was walking through my yard, and if I'm misquoting you, sir, you know who you are? He said, one of them officers stopped me, or I asked him what's going on. He said, answer please. We're not through with Mr. Campbell yet. Is that professionalism? I say no. So I conclude my remarks. I love this town. I wouldn't have brought my family here and lived all this time if I didn't. And some of you lived here longer than I have. It just got to have an input to it. If it don't, it's just a continuation of the same thing. And it's happened too many times in my lifetime. And it got worse in the last 3 years. Anyways, I'll conclude my remarks. I appreciate your time. I hope this sinks in. Yes, I'm mad and angry and upset. Put yourself in my position. How would you feel?
Very good.
So yeah, that's just obviously an absolutely heartbreaking story, and everything that man went through is really unfair and unjust. And the sad and scary thing is this can happen to pretty much anybody, depending on where you live, I guess, and stuff like that. But I mean, it can happen to normal people all the time, getting in trouble for stupid things, invented crimes. The police are already getting away with too much. I mean, think of like the guy who had the ATF really break down his door like unannounced. He owned firearms. A lot of people own firearms to be able to protect themselves from home invasion and things like that. How was he supposed to know that they weren't home invaders? What if he would have shot a cop? Well, that would have been the cop's fault. That would have been their fault for doing that. And under the new law that Trump tried to pass, he would get the death penalty, is what I'm hearing. So this is craziness, what we're seeing right now. This is fascism. It's really dangerous. And I've got, personal stories of getting pulled over. And I remember, being pulled over with, frankly, just to be real with you guys, like Caucasian people, the way the cops treated us, and then getting pulled over when my friend was driving, who's a black guy, the way that we were treated, I witnessed in real time that no, there is such a thing as white privilege, and black people do get treated differently in American society. It's an unequivocal fact. It's not an opinion. It's not. It's like a subjective fact. Of course, it depends on what officer pulls you over or whatever. Obviously, not all cops are racist, but the reality is, police have a history of institutional racism. That's just facts. And yeah, basically, I just witnessed them being like asking if we had guns. Like that was the first really weird thing. We're like both just like, what? Like, why would we have guns with us? Like, also asking us if we have drugs or needles or anything like that. Of course, they searched the car, and it was all over. Like, I forget what it was, but we got pulled over for no reason. And that was like not the first time that I witnessed just police abuse of power and how they profile people and stuff like that. It happened to me. One time I ran into some friends from high school on a corner. I was being followed by the police and watched, and I shook their hands. I did one of these. You know, you do that back in the day. You would do the shake your hand and kind of fist bump. The next thing you know, I got cops pointing their guns at me. They thought that I was doing a drug deal, and I wasn't doing a drug deal. I didn't have any drugs on me. I used cannabis at the time, but I didn't have any on me, thankfully. And I kind of just told these cops, like, after they harassed me and pointed guns at me, like, what are you guys doing with your lives? Pointing guns at, like, 20-year-old kids, like, who saw their friends from high school thinking they're selling pot. Like, you're following me around and watching me? Like, get a fucking life. Like, go after real criminals. Like, I really went off on them, and they didn't like it. And like, oh, next time you actually need help, don't come to us or whatever. I'm like, so if you need to actually do your job, don't come to you. But if you're going to harass people like you're harassing me, okay, sounds about right. Like, I really fucked with their minds. Like, they knew I was right. And there's other stuff, too. My brother, he was a bit of a troublemaker back in the day. But, he got his bike stolen. And these kids were like, oh, I know where your bike is. And he went there, and he got, like, in a fight with them. And, like, they, like, broke a beer bottle on his head. He's, like, bleeding all over the place. My mom called the cops, and all they did was, like, give, like, his girlfriend a disorderly conduct for free, like, a fine for, like, being upset and, like, freaking out because he was, like, bleeding all over the place. And they didn't do anything about the people who, like, attacked my brother or anything like that. And the fact that, like, they, stole his bike and then gave it back to him just to be able to beat the shit out of him. They didn't address that at all. They just gave his girlfriend a fine. That was all they did. Like, I've witnessed, what else? I could go on. Mental illness runs in my family. So, my dad, if he would try to get, or my uncle would go to the police. My uncle would actually, he's a good example. He would go have manic episodes, and so he'd call the police or just 911 and be like, I need help. I need to go to an institution or something. I'm freaking out. And the cops would come and like, beat the shit out of him and bring him to jail. Like, I mean, I could just go on and on about all these things that I've witnessed in my own personal life that just has taught me and showed me not to trust the police. And the cognitive dissonance of Trump people, because I don't, like, I'm not to be, like, polarizing, but, like, January 6th, like, everybody that got arrested there during that, who arrested them? Like, cops. Like, what, you know what I mean? The law and order, like, it's like like, there's a cognitive dissonance there. Like, it's like, okay, so if they're doing their jobs in that instance, then they're bad, but otherwise they're good. Like, which one is it? Like, are they good or they're bad? That's kind of, I don't know, kind of like what I've been struggling with, watching a lot of people. What else do we got here? Well, I kind of think you guys got the point about the police brutality and stuff. I want to take a look at this anonymous message to Elon Musk. I want to point out anonymous is like just anyone can post a thing on YouTube, be like, we're anonymous. It's like Antifa or Black Lives Matter or a lot of different groups. People can just say they're that. They can just be like, I'm Antifa, and then they are or whatever. It's very loosely based, doesn't actually have a clear definition. So who knows who it is that actually posted this? Anonymous isn't really like a real organization. It's just a bunch of hackers on the internet. But I kind of watched a little bit of it, and I found it interesting. And I'm just going to play it and respond to it.
Elon Musk, the billionaire, the innovator, the man who wants to redefine the future. You claim to be different from the rest. A man of the people, a fighter for free speech, a disruptor of corrupt systems. But let's cut through the noise. Are you really? You own the platforms where the world speaks. You control the satellites that connect the disconnected. Your AI is learning, evolving, waiting. Your cars track movements. Your companies shape the future of finance, space, energy, and even thought itself. You are not just a businessman. You are an empire, a digital ruler. And with it comes a question. Who truly benefits? You speak against control, yet you sit at the table with those who manipulate. You warn of AI's dangers while investing in its rapid advancement. You promote free speech but hold the power to silence voices. So we must ask, do you truly want a world where power is in the hands of the people? Or do you simply want to be the one holding it? Elon, the world is watching. The people are watching. We are watching. And we do not forgive betrayal. The future is not yours to own. It belongs to everyone. You claim to build a better world. Prove it. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. So I don't know. I agree with that. We'll see what happens with everything. Maybe there'll be good things in the future, and everything will be great. And I don't know. I don't really know what to say. I feel like I kind of expended my energy, my mental energy already here. That's an interesting message from Elon to Elon Musk from yeah. So I just wanted to make this stream about the dangers of you know, what's going on right now. There's, like I said, there's a lot of people thought that only people would get targeted were criminals when it comes to like this deportation thing, and it's turning out it's being weaponized. And there's more normal people that aren't criminals. People who are trying to get visas. People who are trying to become legal citizens who are here under legal pretenses. They're being targeted to like trump up the numbers. Trump, get it? Trump. I didn't even do that on purpose. It wasn't intended. But no, and also Native Americans are being targeted. That's a whole nother thing. Native Americans, their citizenship and their place, which Penny talked about it during our interview, the last one we did. So I want to just end this with saying thank you to my patrons. I really do need to make another video that but I'm just gonna thank everybody, like thank everybody by name like I did last time. Thanks Marty Bertoni, Leslie LaRubio, Robert Kellel, the one and only, the typical skeptic himself, Robert Eckert, Dragon S, Mystic Herbs, Charlie, GM, Christine C. Donna, Lauren, Mark M., Susan Tetsuko Kano, Mario Mijares, Shelly Thomas, Maria Sweet, Peter Harlemos, Benjamin Matthews, Zenray Q1111, Anastasia, thank you, Gary Fretz, Adrian, Heather Blessington, Zach, Ursula, Mark Sabas, Katie Mabry, and Rennie Fontana. Rennie Fontana. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you. And that's really the whole video. Kind of a weird one. It felt like a kind of weird to do, but I just really wanted to highlight the fact that the police are dangerous. I've heard stories of them protecting some of these SRA rituals where children are being harmed and things like that. And it's corrupt to the core. Pat Jackson talked about it. Police worship is really weird to me, because they're weaponized against the American people. They're weaponized against the people. That's basically it. I love you all very much. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for caring about what I have to say. I hope you found the information maybe a little enlightening. Maybe you learned something. I don't really know what I'm doing that much moving forward with the channel. I'm kind of focusing on my normal life more. Do a barring reaction to I'll have to check that out. KC Chambers covering Eminem's Lose Yourself. Maybe next time. But I just want you guys to know that I love you all, and I'm gonna get going. Take care and have a wonderful rest of your day and stuff, and night or whatever, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is. All right, bye.